We're going to all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance before we get started. So, for joining us. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Well, good evening again, and thank you all for being here this evening. We are moving forward. I think this is the fifth public forum and discussion that we've had on proposed senior center, so we really appreciate everybody being here. I thought what we would do tonight, just very quickly ask Rich Sawitsky to just explain what is before the Board of Selectmen. We don't want to spend a lot of time rehashing the proposal because we've had a lot of dialogue so far, but for folks who may not know all the details about where we are at this point, I thought it would be helpful for Rich Sawitsky to just do a very brief review, and then we'll just turn it right over to public audience. So, if you just raise your hand and give us your name and address for the record, and then share your thoughts with us. We're very anxious to hear from all of you. So with that, why don't we have Rich just do a very brief overview. Thank you, Rich.
Thank you, Mary. Welcome, everyone. Glad to see so many folks came out, and I did want to thank everyone who's participated in this process that's gone on for the last couple of years. We had a lot of volunteers, did site visits, attended a lot of meetings, and really wanted to thank all those people along with the Public Building Committee. I personally have kind of a keen interest in this project. I keep telling my wife that my hair is light blonde, but she says I'm delusional. It's quite gray, so maybe I qualify. I have a few handouts here if anybody's interested later on. I could pass them around if I need to make more, but that's just a very brief summary of the findings. I did want to go over just a few points and really get on to the opportunity for all of you folks to speak, which is the purpose and the important part of this meeting. There's actually been several studies done on senior community centers over the years. The first one was back in feasibility study in 1988. We also had a questionnaire that was done in 2009. We had a very good response to that questionnaire. And then we had a couple meetings with polls back in February of this year. Our members of our subcommittee visited 4 other centers in the state of Connecticut to get some ideas as to what programs they were offering and what size buildings were appropriate. Right now, in our senior center, we have 2,000 members. Certainly more people use it than that. You don't have to be a member. Is that right? We have some 1,430 people use the health screening services a couple times a year. We have 11,000 people who use the fitness programs. That's over the course of the year, all the people that attend the different classes. And we also have some 90 people a week that attend the 2 luncheon sessions. So our center certainly gets a lot of use. What's very interesting, though, is there's a lot of potential for more use. In 2010, there were nearly 7,000 people that are classified as active seniors in Simsbury. Those are folks that are over 55. I don't acknowledge that myself just yet. But, however, our architect did a very in-depth projection, and our peak future years for senior center potential members is in the time period 2025 to 2030, where we estimate, based on the projections in Simsbury and in the state, that there'd be some 9,000 people. So we have looked ahead to that time frame, 2025 to 2030, in order to design the space requirements. Someone had asked some questions about cost to operate a center. I don't know if you wanted to ask those questions later, folks, or you want me to just run through them?
Yeah, no, we'll do it after. We just want to move right to a public audience.
So where we ended up after a detailed study of the demographics I just mentioned, as well as what we saw at the other 4 centers in Connecticut, as well as the programs that are presently being offered and what we might additionally offer, we identified 3 sites that had a lot of potential. One is the Eno Memorial building with an addition. Secondly, we looked at a new site at the corner of Bushy Hill and Stratton Brook Road. And as we went through several sites, we actually looked at some 14 sites in order to narrow it down. We also took a look at the Performing Arts Center, either to have an addition on the back that would serve all of the potential uses for a senior center, as well as some shared space for the Performing Arts Center, and perhaps different combinations where we could have certain fitness activities at the Performing Arts Center, or we even looked at keeping all the senior activities at Eno and perhaps using the Performing Arts Center as a community center. So those are the three different sites that are available for your comment and discussion, and hopefully all your words will give some guidance to the board this evening. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Rich. At this point, we'll turn it over to you for public audience. Given that there's so many folks here, if you just stand and give us your name, I don't think you have to make your way to the podium. So we'll just ask you to do that. And we'll start over here. Sure, go ahead. Okay. You're just don't fall down. So
Hi, good evening. My name is Ed Lamontagne. I reside at 4 George Street. I'm also the chairman of the Town of Simsbury Aging and Disability Commission. For the past 7 years, I've been approached by community leaders, business owners, town personnel, persons who serve on boards and commissions, persons with disabilities, fellow Rotarians, and of course seniors who all deemed it necessary that they impart their wisdom with regard to a new or renovated senior center. I've been part of the community forums, served on the Public Building Subcommittee, attended 4 presentations by Tom and Carey, read numerous documents, had lively and provocative discussions at almost every Aging and Disability Commission meeting. And basically, it comes down to 3 questions. Number 1, do we need a new senior center? 2, if so, where should it be located? And 3, can we afford it? First of all, we do know statistically that in 2010, 29.6% of Simsbury's population was 55 years of age or older. That percentage increases to 37% by 2025, which is less than 12 years from now. This is not only an issue for the town of Simsbury, but a statewide issue. It should be noted that between the years of 2001 and 2009, there have been 17 new senior centers constructed in Connecticut to meet this increase in the number of older adults. So to answer the first question, do we need a new senior center? In 2009, the Aging Disability Commission conducted a survey of 225 seniors to determine in part the need for a new or renovated senior center. Over 50% of the respondents felt that the current senior center had insufficient room for all of the activities, and 60% indicated that they would like a new senior center. Additionally, it was indicated that the current senior center does not have a convenient drop-off location close to an entrance, does not have sufficient or accessible parking, and is not totally accessible. Interestingly, 60% of the respondents indicated that the new building could be a senior center / community center, which could incorporate other town functions when the senior center is not utilized. Question number 2, where should it be located? The survey overwhelmingly indicated that it should be in the center of town, which means that of the 3 locations identified by Quisenberry architects, only 2 would qualify. Those being an extension to Eno Memorial Hall or a standalone building next to the Performing Arts Center. To support this, in 2010, I was one of the many people who had input into the town center charrette. At that time, guiding principles were developed, one of which advocated for the redevelopment of the west side of Iron Horse Boulevard to focus on low mixed residential development and retail, the premise of which would be to draw people to the town center. This village concept would benefit our seniors by providing an affordable place to live, a place to shop, and an all-inclusive senior center where they can receive a comprehensive delivery of services essential for maintaining their health, independence, and well-being. The third question is, can we afford it? I know many seniors are worried that their taxes will go up if a new senior center is built. However, grants towards construction and running costs of senior centers are available from a variety of sources, including federal and state community development programs. I would recommend that a Friends of the Simsbury Senior Center be established to assist with this effort. This has proved effective with the development of the Simsbury Library, as well as the development of many senior centers throughout Connecticut. Finally, we should be proud that in the June issue of Hartford Magazine, Simsbury was ranked #1 for families and schools, country living, leisure life, lowest crime, and for being young and hip, of which I am neither. Conversely, we were only ranked 6th as being best for seniors. Will building a new senior center improve our ranking? I don't know. I do know that senior centers are a highly valuable resource to the community and enhance the quality of life for older adults, and that they strive to prevent isolation and encourage socialization. After all they have done for us, we owe it to our older adults to provide them with the best programs, services, and support. And we could do better than 6th place. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Why don't we go over on this side and we'll go back and forth. Dave.
Dave Galt, 41 Madison Lane, West Simsbury.
Thank you very much.
To the Board of Selectmen concerning the Senior Center project, the open space on the corner of Stratton Brook and Bushy Hill should not be built on. This section of forest is within the primary recharge area of the Stratton Brook aquifer. One of the main reasons this town undertook the arduous task of preserving the Ethel Walker Woods was to protect our drinking water. Building on the site in question would increase the impervious surfaces within this same primary recharge area, degrading the forest's ability to purify the water we drink. It does not make any sense whatsoever to spend millions of dollars preserving a large section of open space within the primary recharge area, as we did with the Ethel Walker Woods preservation, only to then turn around and build on what is essentially the same open space in the same primary recharge area. Doing so would be ludicrous. 2, this section of forest is contiguous with over 1,400 acres of open space. Like the Walker Woods, this open space is a piece of a larger whole. We should not be slicing into it. If we do, it degrades the whole. It diminishes the whole's current ability to support diverse wildlife habitats, it diminishes its recreational value, it diminishes its ability to purify the water we drink. We should leave this valuable resource intact. Developers love to work with pristine sites. It provides a blank slate. But this pristine site is inappropriate for development. It was inappropriate for the site of the new high school a decade ago, and it is inappropriate as the site for a new senior center today. The Open Space Committee needs to redouble its efforts to add protections to sites like these within Simsbury, and this site should be at the top of this list. Do not build here. Furthermore, for surveys to have any meaning, they must be conducted in a scientific fashion. The survey conducted by the Aging and Disability Commission back in August 2009 and the survey conducted by the Building Commission at the end of 2012 should not be considered as scientific studies. They are informal. They are not taken from an appropriate random sampling of the population, and not enough care was taken in formulating the questions asked to remove biases. It's a difficult task to do a scientific study of that nature. The results, therefore, do not represent the voice of the population. If this sort of information is desired, and I'm not saying it's necessary, then a professional organization such as Pulsar should be contracted to conduct a scientific survey, much like the survey the town contracted them to do back in 2008. In my opinion, if a senior center project does move forward, it should focus on improving the existing services, facilities, and parking at Eno Hall. This town does not need a new building on the list of buildings that it must maintain, staff, heat, and cool. The town is already committed to maintaining Eno Hall. We do not need to add to that burden with more buildings. In summary, the site at the corner of Bushy Hill and Stratton Brook is inappropriate for development of any kind. It should remain as open space. 2, we currently do not have a valid scientific survey of the community's desires and needs with regards to a senior center. And 3, in my opinion, if a senior center project does move forward, it should concern itself with further investing in Eno Hall and downtown Simsbury. And I want to thank you all very much for your service.
Thank you very much. We'll make your comments, thank you for this. We'll make it part of the record. Thanks, Dave. Anyone on this side? Anyone on this side? Yes, Mike. Sean, you want to grab the mic? There you go. Thank you.
Okay, well, as all everybody can see, I'm in a wheelchair, so I can't stand up. I feel that I'm in a unique position where I can firsthand comment on handicap accessibility in Eno Hall, which also affects many seniors. This information being firsthand, I think, should have greater importance than people just reading guidelines. Bottom line, Eno Hall cannot be used as a senior center, I don't think. You can't meet the proper needs while maintaining its historic requirements. Being in a wheelchair and attending 2 meetings a month there, I can firsthand relate to accessibility issues there. For example, the width of the door openings. I don't think you're allowed to change that, but I just can barely fit in. And being in a mechanical chair probably will bump and ruin them a little bit. I think it's unfair to propose a center that's good for only walking seniors only. Even if the ADA requirements are met, I don't feel that just meeting them is proper and what we should strive for. For example, parking. Even though the minimum number of handicap parking spaces required by law may be met, having proper space around them and access is just as important. Even though there's not a great amount of space around the existing spaces. In one of the groups I attend, the co-group leader almost got hit one night. She parked in a regular spot, was just coming out of her car. A lady backing up, coming out of a handicap spot, almost ran into her. So it's not just the number of spaces, it's a proper room around them. I feel that the parking deck that's been proposed is not a good option. I can think back to my mother and how terrified she was of using parking garages. I can see now having a parking deck, she wouldn't be just interested in using it. So, bottom line, I know building has the advantages of having the proper features, accessibility, and parking. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Can we have your name for the record? We just give your name for the record. Thanks, Michael. Address. And an address for the clerk. The address. Thank you. We'll move over on this side, yes. Alan, yep.
I apologize, I don't have a handout, but I'll see that you get one.
Thank you. I'm sure you will. That's
Good evening, Helen Peterson, 20 Longview Drive. I have always, long time, advocated very strongly for the value of the location of the senior center within the town center, and especially at Eno Hall. You can find that advocacy mentioned as early as page 5 of the document that was produced by the very first charrette in the 90s. Philosophically, I believe strongly that seniors are too important to the well-being of a community actively to be engaged and visible, not cordoned off to a corner of our town. Ecologically, I advocate for green building and siding, use of existing structures with multi-use opportunities. By adding onto Eno, we extend and enhance multi-use and shared parking within town center. Economically, an enhanced Eno Hall supports small businesses in the center as well. Also economically, meaning budgetarily for town expenditures, the siting of a facility on open land creates a whole new and unnecessary burden to the taxpayers, a whole new campus. Construction estimates may suggest that an add-on to Eno Hall is more expensive than new construction initially, but we should be thinking more prudently and for the long term. Creating a new building, a new site, burdens us with long-term building maintenance, parking, snow removal, generators, landscaping, mowing, lighting, need for policing and protection and security, and on and on and on. Eno Hall's multi-use enhancement offers an enlightened community that ecologically sound and philosophical importance, an economically prudent alternative. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And I do have an open question. You've done well about getting funding, for studies and such. I'm assuming that there is more funding available for enhancing an historical building, as well as, let's say, adding a senior center to a community.
We're looking at every piece of dollars there is out there. Thank you. All right, thanks for asking. We'll move back on this side of the room. Anyone else? On this side, yes.
Hi, good evening. My name is Mark Orenstein. I live at 82 Old Meadow Plain Road, and I'm also on the Aging and Disability Commission. First of all, I'd like to give my compliments to the architects. I think they've come up with some great plans. Also to the Public Building Committee. I've been on some of the subcommittees. I've attended a number of the meetings of the Public Building Committee and attended a number of the presentations. And as a result, I want to read to you from a letter that we developed, a report we developed at the Aging and Disability Commission, dated February 25th. And it's the Senior Center Site Selection Evaluation. I'm not going to read the whole thing, but I'm going to try to point out what I consider a real issue. As written in the Aging and Disability Commission's senior position statement, in addition, many, if not all, senior citizens experience mobility issues, and the ideal attributes for a senior center building include that it be on a single level and that parking be adjacent to the building and on the same grade. The Bushy Hill Stratton Brook site and the Performing Arts Center site meet these attributes. The building layout and the parking at these locations would be very similar to the senior centers visited last year by the Public Building Committee and the Aging and Disability Commission members. At Eno, the senior center would be on 2 levels and would require an elevator. It would also require a parking structure, a 2-level parking platform at the rear of the building. While the architects have done an excellent layout of the senior center over 2 levels, we believe there's a major traffic flow issue in the parking structure. Can I just ask you to stand aside for a second? And this is a conceptual design. Okay? If you take a look at the parking platform, each level has a combined entrance exit. One single thing is depicted in this plan. So coming in from Station Street, you'd be making a right-hand turn to come in here. If you go into the lower level, you'd be coming in on Railroad Street and going down and underneath. There is not, as a result, with only a single entrance exit, there's no continuous forward flow of traffic. And for seniors in particular, I think that makes it extremely, extremely difficult. I really believe you have to take a look at a entrance-exit separate solution, probably even with parking rather than being perpendicular, parking on some level of diagonal. So it makes it easier for seniors to get in, back out, and then go forward again. Okay. So as a result, I'm not sure. I've spoken with Rich, and I think he understands the issue as well and is looking for solutions. I'm just concerned that there's not enough space behind Eno to come up with a reasonable solution. Maybe other than sacrificing Railroad Street, who knows? But I think that's a real showstopper at this point for doing anything at Eno. I'd really like to see more detail to this. I'd also like to see operating procedures for this, for the parking structure. Is the parking structure during the day going to be reserved only for seniors and their staff, or is it going to be open to the public? If it's open to the public, how many spaces are going to be reserved for seniors? Are there going to be passes passed out or stickers to put on cars? I think there's a number of detailed things operationally that need to be examined before Eno can be approved as a site for the senior center.
Thank you. Thank you, Mark. I'm going to keep track of all the questions that are raised during the public audience.
Good.
And then we'll try to have some time to have staff address those. But this is the time for the public to comment, so we want to make sure we hear from all of you. Thank you.
We're on this side.
We're on your side, Mr. Zahler. Come on up. Yes, please.
Push me luck.
Should we move can we move the, I don't know, well, they can't get on SCTV. So get ready on this side of the room, because we're coming here next, so.
Well, first of all, I'm going to have to apologize to this audience because what I'm going to address is this package of information that was given to the Board of Selectmen with all the information that they would use to make a decision on which way to go. You folks do not have this information, so please bear with me, okay?
Name and address.
Let me start now by saying that,
We could just get your name and address.
Don Zahler, 1 West Street.
Thank you.
About 2 years ago, a subcommittee was appointed to work on this very issue. Let's see what we can do at the senior center. I was fortunate enough to be among one of 3 other seniors that use Eno. And we were fortunate that we visited 4 sites in different communities. Enfield, Glastonbury, I forget which one, but Lebanon and Agawam, Massachusetts. And Agawam, Massachusetts is the gold standard, okay? That is really the measuring stick of what you can accomplish. And I'm going to jump ahead. You can't do anything with Eno that's going to come even close to that, all right? But to begin with then, as I say, it was part of the subcommittee, and the engineers did a good job. They came up with a substantive evaluation, a point system, to evaluate all the sites that were under consideration. Take it out of the realm of desire, sentiment, and that kind of thing. And they established a value and then awarded various points. for each one of those. Now, I need to tweak, I want to give these out to copy of this because this evaluation needs to be tweaked a little bit. You would pass that down, please? And again, folks, you don't have this in your package, and I must apologize, but there's a point system now for the performing arts system. There's a point system for Bushy and a point system for Eno. So on the performing arts system, Arts Center, one of the characteristics is the size, the building size, and the value is 5, and the points awarded are 10. So I thought, well, you know, the value is 5, but they're awarding 10 points. That's 5 extra points. My initial reaction was, well, maybe it's for good behavior. But that doesn't make sense either, does it? So then I looked at the other center sites, and it became apparent that's a transposition. The value should be 10, and the points should be 5. So the bottom line, 87, now becomes 82. Then I looked at the Bushy Hill, that Stratton Brook facility, which is on your second sheet, and there's a element, a characteristic called walking distance to Main Street. The value is 10, and the points awarded to Bushy Hill is 0, and that makes sense. There's no quarrel with that. You can't walk to Main Street from Bushy Hill. Then for Eno Memorial, walking distance to Main Street, the value is 10, and the points are 10. And absolutely, because there you are, you're right on Main Street. So now I look to see what was that evaluation for the Performing Arts Center. Well, there isn't any. There is no evaluation for walking distance to Main Street. Instead, we have a proximity to business district Main Street. Now, that's not a transposition by any stretch of the imagination. Call it what you will, but it's not a transposition. If you're going to do a comparison, an apples-to-apples comparison, you've got to do the walking distance to Main Street. So the 8 points there that are listed for the performing arts system go down to 0, just like Bushy Hill. So now instead of 82 points, now the point value for the Performing Arts Center is 74. So now the Performing Arts Center has the lowest point value. It's the most expensive to develop. You're dealing with a floodplain. You'll be building on a wetlands. You're compromising the wetland standards of the town. And you can avoid all that by going to Bushy Hill. It'll be cheaper. You don't have those and you don't have any of those problems. Now the gentleman talked about the parking at Eno. And And let me preface this by saying the architects surveyed 15 of the user groups at Eno with respect to what they considered was the biggest problem. 12 of them said parking. Parking is the big trigger with Eno. If you don't solve the parking problem, you can't accomplish anything at Eno. And going back to our service on the subcommittee, early on when we reviewed the architectural plans, the subcommittee agreed that probably 200 parking spaces would be the minimum requirement. Now, the architectural folks in implementing this decided that, well, let's start out with 100, and then, if we need to expand, we'll have some room for expanding. So it looks like, you need at least 100 parking spaces to make anything viable. So, but if you look at this now, There really isn't 36 parking spaces. There are only 34. This 36 is a hangover from one of the early versions of this thing. But right now, as you look at this, if you pull in here and all the parking spaces are full, you've got two choices. You back out or you go through a maneuver, back and forth maneuver to go out and hope that nobody, is behind you, so you got some time to do that. Now, are there some other options? Well, sure. What you could do is come in and eliminate these last 4 spots and be able to come in here and do this turnaround maneuver. This also only has 2 handicap spots. Right now we have 4 handicap spots at Eno. So I would suggest that we add at least 2 more handicap spots. So instead of 34 spots now, we're down to 28 parking spaces. Now there's a lower level that's proposed. There is no separate schematic for that lower level, so I took the liberty of marking up a diagram which would represent the lower level as it is. If you look at the original presentation, the entrance to the lower level leads to 1, 2, 3 parking spots. So, that can't be. So I marked it up so that we take these 3 spots out, and you've got the same problem that you had on the upper level. If you go in and there's no, if it's all full, you've got to back out. So now you lose 4 more parking spots. And I would say, again, we need to have 2 more handicap spots. You're talking about a senior center. You don't want to just meet the statutory minimum for handicap spots. So we take that all into account. Oh, and this doesn't account for the structural pillars that are going to be required to support the upper deck. So there's going to be a loss of additional parking spots. So at best, you'll have 53 parking spots at Eno, a far cry from at least the 100 and that right now are planned. And if you make a mistake, and you need really more than this number of parking places, you're dead. There's no place to go. Eno is a finite area. There is no more land except what exists there. Bushy Hill, if you make a mistake, you've got some room to expand.
Thank you, Mr. Zahler.
I'm not done.
Oh,
You're not going to get off that easy. Now, the gentleman mentioned the aquifer. I'm not qualified to really address that issue. I looked at the aquifer layout. I have a diagram of the size of the aquifer. It's enormous. It's pretty big. And yes, they turned down the high school at some point in time, but my understanding that was mainly because people didn't want a high school, not because it was going to damage the aquifer. But the worst comment I've heard about Bushy Hill is that it's not in the center of town, but it's in the center of the population of the city, of the town. It's got access from north, south, east, and west. It's a beautiful location in that regard. And I mentioned that Agawam is pretty much the gold standard. It has an address on Main Street. And Agawam's Main Street is much like our Hop Meadow. It's a very long road, goes through quite a distance of the town. But unlike Simsbury, the residential area sort of bleeds in, the business area bleeds into a very heavy residential area. And the Agawam Senior Center is located right in the middle of the residential area. There's houses all around the place. far removed from the center of town. So the aspect of being close to the center of town, and people drive anyway. So whether they drive to Bushy Hill or the center of town, I don't see where that's a significant consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're back on this side, and then we'll go in the middle. Anyone on this side? Yes, sir. And then we'll go to the middle. And thank you, Mr. Zailer, for visiting all those sites as well.
My name is David Baer, 82 Great Pond Road. I won't be as fancy a speaker as a lot of the people we've heard here tonight, but hopefully I'll make a little common sense. First of all, I really appreciate being at the Eno. I have lunch there almost every Wednesday and attend some of the other events, and I'd like to thank Kathy and Vicki and all you people that make it available to us. But most of the people I talk to, they don't want to leave the Eno. Eno has a lot of history. We're part of history. We've become a part of history. And someday, some of you younger folks are going to get there too. I'll go back quite a few years ago when they wanted to build a high school to this gentleman that just spoke. That thing was a go. I mean, that came so close it was unreal. Until Don Tuller stood up and said, we cannot afford this school. We cannot afford it. And then all of you other fancy Dans here got right behind him, and they decided they'd remodel the one that we have, and they made it work. We can make the senior center work. First of all, parking. Yes, we have a parking problem, and we need a few more senior spots. I made mention to Mickey quite a while ago that we could take some of our busy events, like Wednesday lunch is busy, and they have, I don't know if it's dance, something goes on there pretty big that has a large attendance. I said if they started that other group about 15 minutes early, it would open up the parking for the people that come for lunch. It would solve a lot of the parking problems. Most of the events that I've been to don't really have a parking problem, except Wednesday lunch is. Yeah, I know there has to be some Taj Mahals around there, like you mentioned the Agawam. Do we really need a Taj Mahal? Do we need to ask the town to spend this kind of money? I mean, $8 million, who has that in their pocket? Who thinks they're going to have it? Not many. Someone mentioned about 90 meals a day being served there on Wednesdays. There's no 90 meals being served on Wednesday. A couple of fellows that I sit with, they set the tables there every week. Like this last week we had 50, and they get up to 62. And I imagine once in a while there could be an overflow, but most of the time it's between 50 and 60 lunches. I don't know how that gentleman came up with 90 lunches. I like honesty when people speak. Somehow this thing really got rolling. We have the horse ahead of the cart. I mean, who the heck came up with spending $200,000 to keep this thing going before there's a vote on it? Don't the people here in town have a right to vote in spending this kind of money? We have that kind of loose change kicking around where we can afford to do another study? My goodness. Okay, mention. Oh, the TV station down there. Possibly that could be moved up to the high school. That would probably go very well with the school, where the kids could, get a lot out of it. And that would open up the building for more room that they claim they need. And the taxes. What kind of a tax rate would this have on us? Now, we came up with a tax rate after the town budget and everything. We had another thing of things that needed to be done here in town. It was $5 million it came to. What did that $5 million equate to in taxes for us? In as far as
Oh, I'm sorry, I was writing down the question.
Okay.
So I'm going to answer all the questions.
What,
at
what
the
did
end.
that $5 million equate to?
The new mill
new
rate?
budget,
I'll
yeah.
answer it after you've finished.
You don't want to answer? Please, Mary.
I will, David. I just don't, I want to make sure I get it right, and I don't want to
Okay.
interrupt your comment.
Yeah, it's quite a bit of money.
Yeah.
And I think the young people deserve better than this. How can we, as seniors, want to leave our young people with this kind of debt? You know, Simsbury's done fantastic. You've done fantastic, Mary, Lisa.
Thank you.
I don't know about some of the people you have working for you. I think they need a little help. I'll leave you with that.
Thank you, David. And we'll get, those are all excellent questions. I think we'll make sure we go through each of them at the end. We're going to go in the middle, so Anita.
Hi, I'm Anita Mealert at 57 East Weetog Street. As a senior citizen myself, which is what happens when you spend as many years as I have on the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance, I have a number of comments to make concerning the choice you're going to make tonight about the senior center. First of all, I really appreciate a lot of the things that have been said tonight. I would like to correct one misunderstanding, I think. What is shown on here as a parking deck is really not a parking deck. That's really not a design that we've been working with. And it may be a concept that a building architect may have come up with, but we've been working with a parking deck designer, and that is not what we've been working towards. So when you analyze things like K-turns and whatever, they really don't apply because the whole structure may actually go larger over onto private property, have whole different access points, et cetera.
And just to answer one of the questions for some background, the Simsbury Main Street Partnership did apply for a grant to fund the deck. We have not heard whether we received that grant.
Yeah, if the Connecticut OPM ever gets its act together and tells us whether we get the $500,000, that would be our first grant on the way. First, everybody on the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Finance received 2 spreadsheets from me via email over the weekend, which compare, number 1, the 3 site assessments, and number 2, the 2 new construction sites for cost. I invited you all to come to your own conclusions for this information, and now you're going to hear my conclusion. I believe that the result of this study is that the assessments were not done in a fair and consistent manner. A clear bias toward the Bushy Hill site emerged when both spreadsheets were taken together. For instance, under the site assessments, under environmental issues, the Bushy Hill site is over our major aquifer, needs significant clear cutting of forest, and is on ledge, yet it gets a 7 out of 10. It's severe environmental impact. Recreation available. Bushy Hill has none, yet it got a score of 9 because there is room on the site, quote unquote. Do we intend to build duplicate resources, and where are the costs for those? On the construction costs, the other sheet, it's a little more damning, I think. There are 10 cost variations between the 2 new construction sites, Bushy Hill and the Performing Arts Center. It's apples to apples that we were talking about earlier. There are 10 items in which there are differences of finances. 9 of them favor Bushy Hill, and in a way that is, in my opinion, quite unfair because some of those things were a different number of cars to be parked, other additional PAC site improvements that were supposed to be made that were not from the senior center point of view. One had a larger square footage than the other. They were even based on different years of construction. When it came to things like architectural and engineering fees, there was even a different percentage used to arrive at the amount. That made a $50,000 difference. Then at the very end on project contingency, he charged 7% on the Bushy Hill site, but 10% on the PAC site. Altogether, there is a price differential of $652,000 with the different sites that I could probably go through more of these and find more on here, but if you load it all with the bad percentages and the bad results, you're going to come down with a pretty bad conclusion at the bottom, and that's what I found. Secondly, regarding the costs on the Eno renovation, many of the soft costs listed have already been done during the recently completed restoration. Items like environmental survey, geotechnical testing, topographic survey, hazardous materials assessment, all these are certainly up to date with the building requirements that we've satisfied recently. Also, why should the clerk of the works on Eno require $25,000 more than on the other two sites? How could you possibly spend $15,000 on telephone and communications, over and above the telephones that are already there? Why would you round up on a percentage of construction contingency and round it up $21,000? It's outrageous how much the addition at Eno Hall is estimated to cost. Third, I believe there are significant parallels here to the renovation and new scenarios we went through on the high school 12 years ago. I remember it clearly. I was first selectman at the time. At the time, there were predictions that the population in the building for 4 years of high school would top out at 2,000 students. We've topped out right now at 1,500 students. That's a huge difference, that we were at one point predicted to have 500 more students per year in the building, which would have meant that the cafeteria wouldn't have been big enough, the library would need to be bigger, you'd need more vice principals, et cetera, et cetera. None of it materialized. And the difference in the estimates, therefore, the renovation we did for $28 million, a brand new building, would have cost us $95 million. Do you want $70 million more on your mill rate? Why are we fulfilling a wish list that duplicates so many services? The new senior center sites would have library, would have a cafe. Where does the staff person come from? Who's going to man the cafe? Are we going to pay that person pension, health benefits, et cetera? Why are we duplicating when we've already downtown, we've already got coffee shops. We've already got a library that is itself already too big. Fourth, we've been told that the cost of the senior center fits into the capital improvement guidelines given by the Board of Finance. But is there anyone here who believes that this major expenditure will not affect our mill rate, driving out more of the seniors it is meant to serve? Tax bills are probably in the mail right now.
No, not yet, but soon.
Better be careful. Better be careful. I personally, as a historic preservationist, I've done a lot of volunteer work in historic preservation for 25 years. Eno is a jewel. It is the jewel in our crown, and we can make it work.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good. John. We're just going to keep going if the Board of Selectmen is okay with we're going to just keep going until we hear from folks. If we don't, it's closed.
Do you want to close that one? Are you cold?
That one's not open. It's so hot here before.
Good evening. I'm John Schaefer from 16 Lost Brick Road. I'm a landscape architect. I received my Master's of Landscape Architecture from the University of Michigan, and I've spent 18 years working in professional offices, private offices, doing site planning and site design, very similar to what was done on this project. I wish to make a few comments on the Senior Center site selection methodology. The study does not take into consideration some very important issues when evaluating the pros and cons of the various site characteristics. The first issue is the floodplain. It does not seem appropriate to build a new public building, especially a senior center, in or on the edge of a floodplain. It would seem as though any new town building should be built such that it could be used as an emergency center. It wouldn't be in an area subject to flooding. The Performing Arts Center site is within the floodplain zone. The soils are probably not suitable for construction. The unsuitable soils would require more extensive construction methods, which would make the PAC site significantly more expensive to build than normal construction. If the correct engineering methods are not followed, the building and the site improvements would be subject to abnormal wear and require higher or more expensive than normal maintenance. Also, additional fill and compensatory excavation would be required in the flood zone. The second issue concerns the aquifer protection zone. The Bushy Hill Stratton Brook Road site is located in an aquifer zone, protection zone, as was mentioned earlier, and the potential for contamination from this project could contaminate the town's primary water supply aquifer. Third issue concerns open space. The town voters have already made it clear that the open space east of Iron Horse Boulevard and the Ethel Walker Woods property should remain open space and not be developed. The senior center building footprint, along with the site improvements, would remove significant amount of that open space at both the PAC and the Bushy Hill Road sites. The fourth issue concerns accessibility. If the town center zone develops as was envisioned in the charrette, there will be a significant amount of senior housing in the town center. It would be easier for those seniors to access Eno than the PAC or the Bushy Hill sites. When people say that there is inadequate parking at Eno, even with a deck, they are not taking into consideration that if the town center builds out per the charrette, many of the senior center users will be living in the town center and will walk to the senior center. The fifth issue concerns new construction versus Eno. When people are comparing a new single-floor building versus Eno, they say that access to Eno and the usable areas within Eno are not good. The problem is that they are comparing the new building to what Eno is now, without envisioning the addition to Eno that would provide the access and usable space comparable to what would be in the other new building. The last point I want to make is on the site assessments, where the values were given for the various characteristics of the different sites. Site assessments are always subjective, and I didn't change the characteristics in my analysis. I didn't change the characteristics that were there, but tried to work with them. But given those characteristics that were on the assessments that we were provided in the study, if the above mentioned issues are taken into consideration in assigning points for each of the 3 recommended sites, the numbers change significantly. The numbers would then turn out to be Eno Hall would have a value of 93, the Performing Arts Center a 63, and the Bushy Hill Stratton Brook Road would have a 62. These issues also affect the probable estimate of project costs, significantly narrowing the cost differences in the study. The Eno Hall site becomes a clear winner, and the other 2 fall into the grouping from the original study that were deemed not worthy of further consideration. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anyone else? Yes, in the back. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thanks, John.
My name is Norma Savadio. I live at 10 Sagamore Drive here in Simsbury. As a tax-paying senior, I question the need during these uncertain economic times for a new senior center. We have a wonderful senior center in the newly renovated Eno Memorial Hall in the center of Simsbury, near where, according to the charrette, retail and residential development will occur. Eno has 3 floors, an elevator for anyone to reach each of these floors, an entry ramp for those who cannot enter the building via stairs, lots of miscellaneous rooms which provide space for whatever programs the seniors need. I have questions. Number 1, have any studies been done regarding the usage of the present facilities? 2, Has the present usage outgrown the facility space? Or is there miscellaneous unused space which could be reconfigured to meet any unmet needs? 3, have seniors younger than me, seniors in their 70s and 60s, and Simsbury residents even younger than that, had an opportunity to express their thoughts as to their needs in the future for a facility to be used in their senior years. In other words, if you look at the demographics every 10 years, I notice that people have a lot of different interests every 10 years. What a horrible error could be made if we do not address the concerns of all future users of a senior facility. Let's not put the cart before the horse just to have a new building, needing new staffing, additional upkeep costs, while we already have a wonderful building, which will be in the center of our downtown community as we see the results of the center plan coming into fruition. I'm sure additional changes can be made to the Eno area to meet any senior concerns or needs, and will meet whatever codes are necessary to accommodate the senior population. Therefore, I believe Eno Memorial Hall is the best building for this community.
Thank you. Thank you, Norma. Thanks for providing us a copy of your remarks. We'll make sure we include it in the file. Thank you so much. Okay, we're back over here, so why don't we, yes, sir. Ferg. And then we'll be back over on this side, so get ready.
My name is Ferg Jansen. I live at 3 Fox Inn. And based on what the previous speaker said, I will prefix my remark by saying if a new senior center is built. Personally, I would favor downtown. I am a member of the Performing Arts Board. The Performing Arts Board voted last week to encourage the selectmen to at least look into combining the performing arts, the additions that are planned, the long-range plans to expand the performing arts facility with the senior center. A couple reasons. The town spent $25,000 last year to do a report on what the performing arts center should be in the future, done by a group called Webb. And their report says that the Performing Arts Center should be an economic driver. And like everything else, to do the expansion there, it costs money. And the Performing Arts Board just feels before the last step is taken, a rendering, a $5,000 rendering, something should be done to look at the needs for the senior center and the Performing Arts Board to see if there's a way to marry them and save the town money. I can't talk about floodplain, I can't talk about aquifers, but we think that before the final shovel or whatever is done, the town should at least look at that combination. I think it should be downtown. I don't, someone said, well, gee, the parking's tough, getting in there by the playscape. Well, the back way could be a way the seniors could come in. There are a lot of things to consider, and everybody has a different opinion, obviously. I think I'm a senior citizen, and I don't use the facility now, but as this woman says, eventually I probably will, and I'd like it to be the best for this town, assuming one's built. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Anyone on this side? Yeah, you're up. You're not shy. Come on up. I know.
My name is Edna Schreindorf. I live on Westwood Drive. Now, my friend Pauline and I have for years and years been trying to get a new senior center. Now, the senior center was 1987 in Eno. It was never meant to be a senior center. Of course, we all know about the parking. We don't have enough room. We don't have enough storage. If they have cheese day down there, then we have to go to Boy Scout Hall to do our exercise, which isn't the safest place. And neither is Eno the safest place. A lot of women won't walk up the stairs because they're so afraid of falling. And I don't understand how you can knock out the back of Eno when I suggested putting a ramp in the front, because a woman had come in and said, is there any other way to come in? And I said, go down the back, down the ramp, and take the elevator. Oh, no, I will not take the elevator. But they said they couldn't change the outside of the building. So how can they do that to the back of it? Now, since 91, I go every day to the senior center. If you don't go every day to the senior center, you don't know what's going on. We don't have enough room. We don't have enough storage. We need a new senior center, and that's all.
Thank you, and thank you for all of your hard work in visiting all the senior centers, too.
You know, we have plenty of volunteers.
Yes, we do. Thank you. Thank you. And thanks, Pauline, too. Okay. Anyone on this side? We'll move back on this side. Okay. We're running out of speakers. Anyone? Okay. Two in the back. Okay.
I'm not even sure about it. Things, I will tell you that anybody who was interested could have picked up the pack a week, 2 weeks ago and had the information you had. So most of us have studied what has been proposed and looked at it. What worries me a little bit, and I just want to use this as a reminder, almost everybody in this room spent countless hours at the charrette. We talked about downtown, we talked about our seniors, we talked about our youngsters, we talked about our walkability, we talked about the viability, livability of downtown. So why we would even talk about moving our seniors out of downtown when, as other people have said, we're talking about building extra space for us seniors to live downtown, kind of makes no sense. To discount the aquifer, to discount the wetland, is to discount most of what Simsbury stood for. Preserving our environment, setting an example for the younger people. We don't throw things away in Simsbury. We don't get a new computer every year because kids say, oh, you know, there's something new, we want a newer car, we want a newer this. Simsbury stands for preserving, protecting our special places. And as Anita said, Eno is the gem of our buildings downtown. And we can make it work for our seniors with the addition and the drawings even that are here make the space very usable for our seniors. And I think above all, we should be setting an example. So I hope you'll take that into consideration.
Thank you. And Diane, if you just, the clerk, your name for the record, that would be great.
Diane Nash, 5 Marywood.
Thank you. Thanks for your comments. Amos.
Good evening. I'm Emil Dahlquist, 54 Hildecrest Drive. I'm here as a resident, not representing a board or commission. But that said, I do want to say that the Design Review Board did review the proposals by Mr. Arcari with Rich Sawitsky. And although we didn't take any action, it was although we as a board did not take any action, the conclusion was overwhelmingly for the Eno Memorial Site, that it had many more benefits at that location. I fully support the idea of a senior center, and I think the need has been proven. The question is where, but actually I'd back up even one step further. I think the real issue is how do we go forward and build a better community. The senior center is a civic building. It's a community building, but I think any construction of a civic building ought to benefit the entire community. Yes, it's important for seniors. I'm a senior. It would be important for me. But I think the way we need to approach any civic project from here going forward is to say, what is the benefit to the overall community? And I think that the Eno Memorial Site clearly is the one that fits all of our town policies, our regulations, all of our planning principles. That's the single site that really stands head and shoulders above all of the others. So I would look at planning principles, the 2007 Plan of Conservation and Development, civic buildings with proximity to residential, retail, commercial sites, such as the middle of Simsbury Center, is preferable to a remote automobile-oriented site. Center code and charrette. Several people brought up the charrette study. That was carefully worked out, and the plan is to have the senior center located in the center, very close to Hop Meadow Street. Smart growth strategies. Repurposing buildings or building the greenest buildings are the ones that are already here. One of the principles or one of the strategies in the smart growth is to strengthen and direct development toward pre-existing development sites. Once again, Eno Hall. I think the idea of building in a floodplain really is questionable. The idea of building on a open space site really is hard to defend, in my opinion, because of the we already have a facility that is ready, available, and it's a magnificent building that can be used by a good portion of our community. Low impact development and green building standards. Again, I think Eno is the clear victor there. Developing sustainable communities strengthens our economy, uses energy more efficiently, and protects our natural environment and human health. There are four aspects to that I would look at. Social, the integration of a public assembly building into a variety of other interrelated uses, residential, commercial, open space, and institutional is a critical component of any vibrant community. Economic, developers and builders are finding that people are willing to pay a premium to live in a neighborhood that is attractive, pedestrian-oriented, and that creates a sense of community that benefits residents and businesses alike. Again, Eno Memorial Hall is the obvious choice there. Environmental, preservation of open space, farmland, natural beauty, and critical environmental areas continues to have wide support amongst residents. Community senior centers belong in walkable settlements and not on woodlands, floodplains, or other natural sites. Finally, design, the single structure that symbolizes the character of Simsbury in terms of traditions, its architectural legacy, its aspirations, and its sense of communal pride is the site that currently houses the senior center, Eno Memorial Hall. Two other significant issues here I'll mention briefly: construction cost and the underutilization of existing public spaces. As was pointed out earlier, we have a grant that's pending, and I think a decision is going to arrive on the 2nd of July through the Main Street Partnership. And I think we stand a very good possibility of getting that amount of money to put toward a parking deck. If that does happen, the cost at Eno Hall will significantly drop. As to some of the other concerns about the parking deck, that has not been designed yet. I think Mr. Arcari would point out that, first of all. But that is a thing that can be engineered, so that's not really a critical issue. I'm an architect by profession, and that is not an issue that I would consider to be a disadvantage for Eno Hall. The town already owns and maintains assembly spaces at several locations in the center and its surrounds. By inventorying and studying how best to integrate rather than duplicate underutilized spaces into the senior center program, the town would find savings and have better utilization of public space. And finally, we're building our community into the future. After evaluating all of the above principles and criteria, there emerges a clear choice that embodies all of the key components for building not just another building on an open lot, but a stronger community. The best location is Eno Hall, and only at Eno Hall.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye.
Joanne Pomerantz, 65 Blue Ridge Drive. Eno Hall is a lovely historic building. I'm not questioning that it needs improvements to best function as a senior center. My question is, if we move the senior center elsewhere, we aren't tearing Eno down. We will continue to pay for its maintenance. What will its function be?
Good question. I'm sure we'll be getting those answers, so thank you. Any other comments? Yes. Okay.
Hi, I'm Lonnie Schultz, 23 Woodhaven Drive. I'm not yet a senior, and I will probably be working for the rest of my life and wouldn't even be able to take advantage of many of the programs there. That being said, I think Eno Hall is a wonderful facility. It's a wonderful location. The other sites have environmental concerns, which people have talked about. And one question I would like to ask is, I'm not familiar with any bus service that's available in Simsbury, but could possibly a bus system that in particular would bring seniors from their homes to a senior center alleviate much of the parking problems and some of the accessibility problems in terms of being able to get to an entrance?
Just to answer, so folks know, we have a dial-a-ride program that you can call and use, and so that is something that is offered currently. Whether that could address the parking, we have to explore. But thank you for asking that. Any other comments? We've had about 15 speakers. A lot of really good questions being asked. I want to give everyone an opportunity if there are any additional comments. What we'll be doing tonight, just so you know, you're welcome to stay for our meeting. We'd love to have you for the next several hours. But if you choose not to join us, no refreshments, I'm sorry. I think what we'll do is a lot of really good questions were raised tonight. The board will have a chance to talk a little bit about it, but I would recommend that a decision not be made tonight so that we can get some answers to the really excellent questions that were raised. So if the board's comfortable with that, not making a decision tonight, is everyone comfortable with that? Then you don't have to feel that you have to stay and influence us. You'll have plenty of time to do that at another time. I just didn't want folks to stay. You're welcome to stay, but if you felt we were making a decision tonight, we are not. We'll be taking all those questions up and getting answers to those and discussing it at our next Board of Selectmen meeting. So I want to thank you all for your comments. I think this has been very informative, very helpful. And we'll take a 5-minute recess so that we can start our next meeting. So thank you all. That's a lot of...